So, another Indian missile system for you, the Agni missile. Agni in Sanskrit, I believe, not Hindi, means fire, and I think that it's not as potent as the Trident system, but it has shown really, really quick development, and it shows how India is making steps, forward for its own development. It's becoming a key player in defense, and I don't think that's really something one can ignore anymore. Agni, if you hadn't figured it out by now, is a ballistic missile. Specifically, in the beginning, a medium-range ballistic missile, prior to being upgraded, all the way from Agni 1 to Agni 5 and 6, which are intercontinental ballistic missiles of the nuclear caliber. Now, the success of this program largely comes in Indian military bureaucracy, actually. There was once a man who said, innovation is determined not by the proficiency and craftsmanship of a force, not the power of the mill, but the financial constraints of the kingdom. And I know that such a saying was said because I literally just made it up right now. It was said by me. But for now, it is true. Agni has been a success for India because the Indian equivalent of the MOD, or I guess the DSTL, is the DRDO. They decided to put Agni under a special program which gave it better funding. After the initial success, it wasn't included in the more common general innovation program list, which they very easily could have done. This means that Agni has excellent funding, and we've seen how effective that funding has been in its progress to move towards, I guess, the more potent area it can be. It's a potent system and reasonably well known today, particularly in the sort of Asian sphere. So to go from a mere medium ballistic missile, and one which didn't have brilliant capability, to one with intercontinental capability and actually, competing with the larger players on the planet, that's huge. And that's really rather impressive. And the funding is what's facilitated that. The first Agni missile, Agni 1, came in at 12 tons. It was 15 meters long, and it utilized solid rocket propellant and had the option to either carry a nuclear warhead or a conventional 1,000-kilogram warhead. Now, the initial design Agni had a range of about 700 kilometers and only a single propulsion stage. But then it's developed quite quickly, since after this they introduced a second stage of propulsion, and the munition wasn't confined to static ground launcher platforms. It could be launched from trains, mobile road units as well, which is really important. It's like a large lorry, but it carries a nuke. By the time we get to Agni 2, which is the real huge step, it can travel up to 2,500 kilometers, the third at 3,500 kilometers, with a 1.5-ton warhead. And a smaller warhead isn't a problem for India, because they decided to opt for higher accuracy in favor of smaller kiloton yield. So despite the fact they're getting more funding, they're using it more effectively. And of course, this decreased size of the warhead means better intercontinental capabilities when they eventually move on. Now, Agni 4 comes in at 4,000 kilometers, and it's better able to survive re-entry. It can climb to higher heights. It has a shorter time to impact. Now, Agni 4 is originally known as Agni 2 Prime, because it basically bridges the gap between Agni 2 and 3. It has increased capability at longer range strategic taskings, and that precipitated Agni 5 and 6. Agni 5 can travel 5,500 kilometers, and Agni 6 is going to be able to travel about 8 to 10,000 kilometers once it's ready, but it's not quite there yet. Now, if we look at each of them, Agni 1, and they're all strategic warheads, of course, but it's interesting. We start off with a single stage solid fuel. Then we have 2.5 stage solid fuel, then 2 stage, then 2 stage, then 3 stage, then 2 stage, then 4 stage. The point is, generally there is advancement, and the technology that they witness, for example in Agni 2, basically improving Agni Prime or Agni 1 Prime, we see technology being used in order to develop. It's the best stage of evolution. They're taking parts from the best variants of this in order to integrate it into the latter models, the intercontinental ballistic missiles 5 and 6. We also see actually a really diverse range of systems being used, of warheads being used. For Trident, for example, we only see, really specifically, nuclear warheads being used. That's it. Trident is a nuclear program for the West. But for Agni, we see the first one utilizes conventional high explosive, a penetration warhead, a cluster munition warhead, an incendiary warhead, thermobaric warhead, and the strategic nuclear weapon as well. For the second, we see conventional high explosive, penetration, submunitions, incendiary, thermobaric, and strategic nuclear warhead again. For the third, we see conventional, thermobaric, strategic, and even at the point where they're being used, really as strategic nuclear warheads, they still have the option to be adapted to use more conventional strategies, to have more versatility, whether you think that's an acceptable thing or not. Agni 4, conventional, thermobaric, and nuclear. And then Agni 5 and 6, just strategic nuclear. But nonetheless, the improvements of these programs, which a lot of which, even I think Agni 2 is still in service today, shows that, I guess, ballistic missiles can be utilized at longer ranges for non-nuclear capabilities. One doesn't just have to focus on ballistic missiles as a means by which to deliver nuclear warheads. India is at really the forefront of creating ballistic missiles which have lasted for quite a while, that don't employ purely, a single type of warhead. Modular ballistic missiles, which is something that a lot of nations don't so much do. So looking at Agni, we really can see quick development. We can see how quickly India is advancing, and the variation in the systems, of course, is different to that of our comparable example of Trident. Of the ones I've just listed, Agni 5 and Agni 6 are strict intercontinental ballistic nuclear missiles, like Trident. But the fact of the matter is they have such diversity in the missiles that they've developed that can still be used to great effect, that don't have to go out of service when the next one comes in, because they are specific niche technology for when they need to be used. This actually gives India a lot more capability than a lot of other nations, and it's able to do that quickly. If we look at how these have been developed, Agni 1 came into service in 2009, Agni 2 in 2006, Agni 3 2011, Agni 4 2014, and then Agni 5 2019, and then Agni 6 is coming out soon. Nonetheless, the speed of this is absolutely huge, and the differentiation they've managed to get with this, increasing range in, let's say, 3 years of implementation, about 1,000 kilometers, is enormous. Really enormous. Being able to increase payload to an enormous degree is really, really important. Being able to increase takeoff weight is, again, hugely, hugely important, and upping those dimensions with each variation. So, again, India is developing very, very quickly in regard to its systems, and it's also got the K missile system family under development as well, which utilizes perhaps not similar technology, but accompanying technology. So again, as I've said before, in short, don't look down on India, because it's on its way up. And this technology is really hugely influential, really quite important, and it's showing that they can develop something very, very quickly, in a very short range of time, that can have a lot of different capabilities and can still be used even though it's replaced with something better. And that's important.